Bidaské, Native News Online's weekly spotlight on the people making news and leading change in Indian country.
Welcome to another edition of Native Bidaské. Good afternoon, and I'm Levi Rickert with Native News Online, publisher, editor. I have a special guest today on Native Bidaské, and this month we are talking about the midterm elections, which are so important to Indian country, and you could argue the total nation. And we hope that other people are aware of that, how important they are, and that's part of the reason why we are concentrating on elections during the month of October here at Native News Online. And we have OJ Semans, who is the co-founder and co-director of Four Directions out in South Dakota. Welcome, my good friend OJ.
Oh, it's always a pleasure. And again, Wopula, thank you for having me. I always enjoy coming here and visiting with you. You know the importance of the Native vote. You try to get it out to our people, and I really do appreciate that.
Yes. And OJ, next week, Monday, you are Four Directions in the Wisconsin tribes are going to host a town hall. Also, I guess it's called the Tribal Nations Electoral Candidates Forum 2022 over in Madison, Wisconsin. And but before we talk about next Monday, tell us how successful your forum down in Georgia was last month.
Oh, it was great. We had a lot of great candidates. We had candidates from the House, from the Republican Party, Democratic Party, Independent Party running for the U.S. House. It was very educational for them because they didn't know about Native issues. And one of the things that we asked each and every one of them would whether if the Supreme Court was to come down and change ICWA, whether or not they would support using legislation to give the authority back to the tribes. And each and every one of them, it was a nonpartisan deal. Each and every one of them said that they would support ensuring that ICWA was brought back and remained live and well. So, I mean, some people, we talk about, we want you to learn about Native issues. And this is really a great example because the fact is they didn't know about it. And once they understood what it was all about, they all supported ensuring that we were able to keep the Indian Child Welfare Act. So another one was Leader Abrams, Stacey Abrams, running for governor. She showed up. We did invite Governor Kemp. The first email I sent to him, it was an automatic conflict. So then I sent him another one and said, okay, hey, virtually. And that was a conflict too. So we were able to get Stacey there. She sat on a panel, listened to tribal leaders from different parts of the country and local Georgians, answered questions about Native issues. And was very comfortable with us. And you know how it is sometimes where you bring people into a bunch of Indians and they kind of like get a little on edge. First of all, they didn't know we were live yet. And second of all, they really never dealt with us before. So Stacey was nothing but comfortable.
Yeah.
And afterwards, she took the time to go around and talk to people individually. She took photos with people. I mean, she was a candidate that showed that she cared not only just for the radio, but people in front of her. So yeah, I was really happy with how she came out and treated Native Americans.
That's really great because we do know that so often our people and our votes in particular are seen as very insignificant. And, we are the tipping point in some of the states, as you have done. You pointed out to us 2 years ago, what was it, 7 states that really can make a difference in presidential and even all the elections. And elections are just so important. Now, tell us about Monday. You have another one, and I'm going to try to be there myself. And be happy to participate on a panel. But tell us who the other special guest is that you have invited.
Yes, we invited Secretary Holland to make opening remarks on the importance of the native vote throughout Indian country. And we thought there's not a better person that could relay that message than Secretary Holland, being that if it wasn't for the native vote, we would not have a woman native that is in the cabinet position as Secretary of Interior. So we thought that would be the best person in the world to relay the message of how important the native vote is. So I'm hoping that everything works out and that she's able to address the tribes there. And actually, we're going to be online and we're streaming on Facebook and YouTube and stuff. So, we're going to give Indian country throughout the United States an opportunity to hear Auntie Deb.
Yeah, that's great. And the tribes, and I know in the last presidential election, Wisconsin was one of the significant states, and you could probably argue that the native vote really made a difference up there. As I recall, was it 20,000 votes that separated the winner last time of the presidential, and Joe Biden won it. But I've seen reports where the Menominee Nation voted like 80 to 90% for Joe Biden, and so that's pretty significant. And when you think about it, you add those up, and then knowing that such a slim margin was the deciding factor. And it's a pretty important senatorial race over there.
Well, yes, and I want to jump back a little bit when you're talking about the importance of the native vote. In 2018, we did an analysis of the population in Indian country and the population in different states. And what we call it was 7 generations, 7 states, 77 electoral votes.
Wow.
And what we found was that the states that we were looking at, and again, it was Wisconsin, it was Michigan, it was Arizona, it was Georgia, it was Nevada. I mean, all of these states had a high population native vote. And what we saw in the 2016 election is that regardless of the candidate, what they won by in these states, the native vote either equaled it or exceeded the percentage of votes that candidate won by. So we knew that had we had a better get out the vote operation and a better getting issues to our people, that we could change election in these 7 states. And so we did, and we did that presidential forum. We did one in Iowa. We did one in Nevada. But then the numbers, and I feel proud. I always call it the spark that lit the fire in Indian country, and which turned out a historic vote in 2020, and it got Secretary Holland as a cabinet member. So I'm very, very happy, and I think the forums that we're doing now will do the same thing.
Well, keep up the good work, and as I said, I'm going to try to be there. It's just important work, and as I said earlier at the beginning of this episode, is the reason Native News Online is concentrated. Hey, last month when you were on, you mentioned a lawsuit that was filed out in Elko County, Nevada. Tell us what happened, where we are with that, and the background was that in some cases people had to drive over minimum of 98 miles one way to go vote, and boy, if you add it all together, that becomes almost an all-day process just to go vote that so many of us just take for granted. So tell us where we are in with that lawsuit, OJ.
Okay, if you don't mind, I'll give you a little history on that.
No
In 2016, 4 Directions worked with the Pyramid Lake and Walker River or Pyramid Lake tribe and Walker River tribe in looking at establishing equality at the ballot box in Pyramid Lake and Walker River. All of the plaintiffs in that lawsuit that was filed against, called Sanchez versus Bidaské, the Secretary of State, all of them except for one were U.S. veterans from the Korean War, World War II, Vietnam. I mean, they're all veterans. We filed that lawsuit on getting an temporary injunction. The judge ruled in our favor and allowed access to tribes, or to Walker River and to Pyramid Lake, to establish early voting offices and to utilize natives as the poll workers. After we had that lawsuit, the parties changed in the state legislature. And what they did is they basically took the federal court order and they codified it in law. And then they changed their constitution to basically say we need to allow equal access. So when we found out what was going on at the Shoshone-Paiute Duck Valley Reservation, where they requested under the law of having early satellite office there for early voting, and at the first, the county wouldn't even talk to them. And then when they did, they gave them 2 days, 2 Fridays, one Friday before the election, another Friday, week before that. And they allowed them 8 hours. And they wouldn't even, so on Friday in November, their election was over. They didn't even get to participate on election day. In Elko County is the richest county per cap in Nevada. There's like a $30,000-$40,000 difference of income between Elko County, the residents in the town of Elko, and then the Duck Valley Indian Reservation. And so what we did is we met with the tribal chairman, vice chairman, and council, and we kind of explained that what they're doing is wrong. And we filed a lawsuit in state court in Elko County, basically a voting rights lawsuit, saying that they were violating their own constitution. In between that time, we filed a temporary injunction, and the judge in Elko called all the parties to a hearing to hear about that temporary injunction. It lasted 6-7 hours. We provided tons and tons of information, and we left there, waiting for a ruling, and we get the lawyers get a message from the senior judge in that area and says, all right, I want all parties to the table to talk about this, to see if we can negotiate it. So on Wednesday, the chairman and the vice chairman went to Elko County, and they sat down with the attorneys for the Elko County commissioners and the clerk reporter, and started discussing this. And we realized, we're just days away from the election. So it turned out they negotiated. So Elko County, for this election now, they're going to get 40 hours of early voting. They're going to get they're going to get election day voting. They're going to get a drop box put on the reservation in different areas, so they don't have to travel so far to drop off their ballots. And they're going to be allowed to start registering and voting on the same day. So that, we felt very good about it, but that's not all of it. The county agreed that from after this election in 2024, moving forward forever, that they will establish a early voting office on the Duck Valley Reservation for 120 hours for a primary, for general. They'll have the drop box, and they'll have all of those all of the rights that the other citizens in Nevada have. And what I really like about this is that we were granted or given citizenship in 1924. It took 98 years for the tribal citizens in Duck Valley to finally get equal access. I mean, totally equal access in the electoral process. So, I mean, we're resilient. It took us 98 years, but we got it. So, yeah, I'm really happy about the overall results in Nevada. And Nevada may come down to not thousands, but hundreds of votes. That's how close this is. And by them trying to keep out the Duck Valley or the Shoshone Paiute tribe from participating, and even if it's only like 200, 300, 400 votes, that could decide who wins that election. And so going back to fighting and this electoral process being a part of us, this tribe that fought for and finally in 98 years got this could decide the election. And I think that's pretty cool.
Well, congratulations. That is tremendous news. I am so proud of what you have done with Four Directions to move that forward, that lawsuit. And we certainly want to do a follow-up article in Native News Online. We've done some coverage of it already, but that is fantastic news. And where else you see potential for Native vote suppression during this election cycle?
Well, you know, I basically see it happening now every day, where they still require such stringent requirements on IDs, whether it's you proving that you live at an actual street address, whether you're a senior or a junior. I mean, just how they have made it so that using IDs almost make it impossible to vote because you don't have this on it. You don't have that on it. So, I mean, this is an issue we're still working on, but it's an issue that to this day is still affecting us. And so even today, there's voter suppression going out throughout Indian country, throughout the United States, that we still have to address. So, you know, in the mornings, I don't get up and say, oh, what a great morning. I get up and go, okay, who are we going to sue? Of course, I'm a Sioux. So, I mean, you got to do that, right?
Yeah, exactly. Well, no, that's great work, though. And obviously, there's tremendous progress being made. Hey, Native News Online recently did a survey on midterm elections, things that are important to Indian country. The number one answer was, and we have it on the screen right now, is tribal sovereignty. The second one is women's right to choose. Third one is healthcare. And fourth is the protection of sacred sites. And the fifth is the environment. OJ, do any of those responses from Indian country, our readers on Native News Online, do they surprise you that tribal sovereignty is the number one issue that they worry about when they go to the polls?
You know, I'm really surprised. You know, I've been, you know, preaching to the choir for quite a long time. And actually, I'm honored to see that is a number one thing, because to me, that is because everything else falls under that. And so, you know, I want to thank you. And actually, I was looking at those and you know, we work with the panels and stuff in writing questions to the candidates. So I'll be stealing your survey.
Well, I'll give you a copy of it. And we are yet to, the results are just in this week, and we are putting together an article, but I certainly will get it, and you can share it at your forum next week, because the women's right to choose is, I know here in the state of Michigan, is a very, very significant issue that's on the ballot box. And I know when I interviewed Mary Patello, who is the first Alaska Native person to represent Congress in the history, is she said that every decision she makes is, in terms of from the Indigenous lens, is the fact that she thinks of how Native women were sterilized and you know, against their wishes. Sometimes we even told what happened, and this has been really substantiated, and my viewers may not know about it, but if you Google it, it's out there. And so she uses that as a barometer. And so what drives Native Americans and Indigenous people's worldview may not be what non-natives think about, but we think in those things. And the environment put a smile on my face. That's number 5. But, I like to tell audiences when I speak is that we've always been environmentalists as Native Americans. So that did not really surprise me. And the number one issue being tribal sovereignty differs from what the national press is talking about now in terms of jobs and the economy. That actually was the 10th thing that Native people are worried about at this point. 10th thing versus what the general population. So to our viewers out there, we will have a story up very shortly on our election survey results. And these are actually, OJ, for your information, as I recall, 683 respondents. And so we're pretty happy with those results. And in terms of baseline, and that, we hear anything about 500 is pretty good. You can really start judging, making evaluations. And we're still having other people analyze this. And it's just, I'll get it to you, OJ, so your folks can analyze it and let me know what you guys think. So
sure.
Yeah, it's like 40-some pages long, so it's pretty extensive, and we'll have it online so for the viewers. So, OJ, I hope to see you Monday. And you have anything to add before we sign off?
Yeah, I do. First of all, I'm glad you're doing a story on that survey, because I've said this for years and years and years, is that most of the time when bad legislation comes out, it didn't just pop up overnight. They practice on us. I mean, the abortion thing was a terrible thing in which they decided to take the rights, the woman's rights to decide away. But you have to remember, they did this to Indian country in the 70s by the Hides Act. They put restrictions on everything that we could do, and because it was the IHS and different things, public health hospital, they started putting restrictions on our women's right to choose. And by the way, in Indian country, the women are the backbone of everything we do, and we would never take and show them that type of disrespect. But getting to my point in your survey is that if they're looking at what your survey is saying, it's because it is an issue for us. It's something that we are dealing with now. And so if we're dealing with it now, that means down the road, they're going to be dealing with it. It may not be tribal sovereignty to them, but it may be them being a city. It may be them being a town. It may be them being a county. I mean, so when they do something that legislatively against us that brings these issues up that are in your survey, it just means it's a test law until they get to the white people.
Okay. Well, Chimi wish you, OJ, and it's always a pleasure talking to you. And to our viewers, thank you for tuning in to another episode of Native Bidaské. As I said, during the month of October, Native News Online is very committed to doing election coverage. And we appreciate you coming in, watching us via Facebook, Twitter, or YouTube. So until next week, have a safe week, and Chimi Witch.
Wash day, Doksha, and Wopula. Thank you very much. You all have a good day.
If you appreciate what we do here at Native News Online, we invite you to donate to support our continued work covering Indian country. You can scan this code with your smartphone or go to the link located below this video to donate today. We greatly appreciate your support. Please be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And be sure to scan this code or go to the link below to subscribe to our newsletter. Thank you for joining us today, and please be sure to join us again next week for another episode of Native Bidaské. Chimi Gwech.